we're just going to assume this thing works. No idea. Hello, welcome back. New video, new everything. Still same bad camera angles. I'm in a bit of a rush, so bear in mind. We're gonna start out this project with me just ironing out some stuff. And while I do that, it's voiceover. Hello, it's me. So I started out with getting this fabric, and it was a costume at the Goodwill outlet bin, and I knew that I wanted to do some kind of Pennywise outfit, specifically the Skeletor one. So the goal of the costume is to use as much fabric as possible, because I know that there's going to be too much if I just do a mini 1/6 scale doll. So I wanted to use as much of the fabric, and that's going to be the goal of this video, is to just use as much fabric as possible. Everyone remember what we're doing? I've said it about 5 times. You'll be quizzed at the end. Just kidding, no quizzes. I hate quizzes. So I talked about briefly the Skeletor doll, if you are interested in seeing what my inspirations were there. I also wanted to get back into smart dolls, which is why you're gonna see in, don't know, the first sketch, don't know what it's called, but there is gonna be this bigger figure and a little doll. We're gonna be bouncing back between those. I'm gonna try and keep the video separate, but there will be a bit of bouncing between them. But I do wanna get back into smart dolls. That's why there is that big, large figure in the background. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, so I have the Sparkle and Shine dolls from Rainbow High. I love the faces of 2 of them, but hate that gimmick. So I needed a body donor, and that's what she is. Yay! I just have an extra ruby head. But recently I needed a Rainbow High head, so I went and got a doll. So now I have an extra body with a Barbie head on it, because I think it's pretty funny. So we're gonna have to do a little head swap, and this is the newer one that doesn't have the articulations in the wrists, but I think for Pennywise, for me, that'll be fine, because all I'm really gonna have her do is hold a balloon. Hello. So I think it's fine not having the wrist articulation on it. And yeah, I think this is gonna be good. So first step is gonna be to switch the heads, and it's just gonna be boiling water and just swapping them. My froggy stuff does it all the time, so go watch one of her videos. I'm gonna do it off camera because our kitchen's pretty small and it's a bit of a health hazard. I'm trying to do a filming video on that. And then after that, next thing to do is going to be adding the spike to the hairline, because I think when the head is off, that'll be easier. And it is during the summertime here, so the days are pretty hot. This head is pretty hard, so I think setting it outside in the sun will definitely help it get a bit more squishy to help the needle go through. And she does have some of these, like a black streak in her hair, which I think is pretty cool, and I think that definitely aids in the Pennywise thing. I mean, purple eyes is okay, but not like the best, but I'm not going to change the eye color. I'm just gonna live with the purple eyes. So we'll be doing a doll, and then a doll with that, and then since it was a medium size, I'm also going to be making just a ball gown version of that for my smart doll as well. So I'm gonna try to be using up all that Pennywise fabric, and that is pretty much first of trying to get projects that I need to get done. So yeah, let's get to Pennywising. Starting out with the small one, again, going back to the concept, is heavily based on the Skeletor doll. There are gonna be some discriminatories in between them because I could not find everything and I just ran out of time and didn't really feel like putting as much detail like as in the Skeletor. Specifically on the shoes, I did stray away specifically on the shoes because I couldn't find, well, I found some like G3 Venus's shoes would have worked, but I am a cheap girl. Everything was secondhand. I maybe spent $20 on this, and 90% of that was buying me shoes and shipping me shoes. So I ended up going with Macari and just finding this pair of shoes, but again, G3 Venus's would have worked as well to give it a lot more one-to-one with the Skeletor doll
but I just didn't want to go with that. And I think the overall outfit strays a bit away from that, so I think the shoes are okay as that as well. The costume had a bunch of the striped fabric. I already went ahead and sectioned out all the fabric that I'm gonna need. For this small one, I really just wanted to focus on using the bodice of the costume, which is not gonna be the skirt or the sleeves. No. I wanted to save all that for the big dress. So, retake. I wanted to just use the sleeve portions because you had this big puffy sleeve and then there was this tiny little bit of striped that was just perfect enough for the doll, because 1/6 scale dolls don't require a lot of fabric. The problem is the stripes. So I was bouncing back between, and again, the Spelunker didn't have the stripes, but I went and looked at the original Pennywise costume and I realized that his front portion did have stripes. They were just very subtle. Not like the costume, so it's not gonna be 1-for-1 on anything, but I realized I could get away with using the whole skirt with just a striped, especially the top. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up using the stripes in 2 different ways. So vertical and then horizontal. The sleeves are gonna be the horizontal ones. So I went ahead and just marked that up. And then the shirt, we're gonna be up and down. Same with that. I ended up using some of the red fabric for the puffy sleeves to emulate the red balloons. And I think they do give that effect a lot more. So I am happy I went with that choice. And I also think the red did really help because the original is just a bunch of grays with red heavy accents. So I think the red sleeves are really good to just help break up that sea of grays, or else it would be like very monochrome on it. So I am very glad that I did that. The socks are just basic socks, just flip the sides inside out and go up, cut them on it. They're very simple. I waited to do the ruffles around the shoes, so that part you did not see. The original costume had 2 different types of lace material. There was this white lace that I'm not sure where exactly it came from, but they did have white lace. I ended up using all of the white lace, or like the more cream colored ones, for this smaller doll, and I ended up using 90% of the gray on the larger dress, so all of the lace does get used, don't worry about that. But his leg ruffles aren't going to be shown until I get the shoes painted, just because I wanted to place them right directly above the shoes. So while these took forever to ship, that's why I did this video. It was supposed to come out last Saturday, but these shoes did not get here until so long. I didn't really have a full plan going into this. Like some people have like face up sheets of what they want and have like a clear view of what they wanted to go for. I had no idea. So I just looked up a picture of Pennywise, mixed up a gray, and just kind of went at it, honestly. I can tell you now what I ended up doing is trying to do almost a 1-for-1 with the Pennywise official makeup. So there is a lot of, I ended up using a slightly off white, because dark white I think would be too flashy with so much gray going on. I started with that. And then he does have some grime. So that's going to be the greens and the grays and the browns that you see me putting over there. Off camera, I ended up going back over those just a tiny bit more because I do think that they were a bit too punchy the first time I did it. You can see me actually realize my mistake. I hit one of the eyeballs with the acetone. And this is a Rainbow High doll. So Rainbow High have these plastic domes over just like a paper eye. It gives it that like 3D look. You hit it, it melts the plastic. So that comes later, because I was originally gonna just keep her purple eyes, but I ended up having to change that because the acetone hit that. And I tried to do everything while the paint going back after it was cleaned. I did rinse her off with soap and water, dried her, then got it into painting, off cam, did all that. So I ended up finishing it, the doll, and then I realized the eyes really did bother me. So I ended up having an extra sunny from the swimsuit model because I wanted to do a sun and moon from FNAF swimsuit set. So I ended up having to buy the sunny doll to get the yellow swimsuit. It was the whole thing. So I had an extra sunny doll, so I stole her eyes. And I did it off camera because I wasn't sure how bad the face up was gonna crack. Thankfully, it survived. I have no idea how, but it did survive, and it was just basically I just had to touch up the eye makeup, and then I went back because the yellow had kind of stiffened up a little bit, so it was more of just like a paste. So I went in and added some like little 3D teeth, and then I kind of just did a few touch-ups from when the eyes did pop out. So when she does pop up again, it's gonna be a bit different. And then it took a few days for the shoes to finally arrive, and then that's when I can continue. I did take a tiny little break from that doll, but for continuity's sake, the shoes arrived. But first off, you've also probably noticed that there was a lack of pom-poms on her dress. I ended up sculpting those out of clay because I saw on one of the inspiration photos they had little faces on them. I also did that off camera, I think, because they were just so small my fat fingers got in the way. But basically they were just little rolled up pieces of Sculpey, and I took a toothpick and poked little holes in them and then just did a swooping motion like you were doing fur, and to give that like really furry textured look, and then just baked them. Ended up gluing them on, and yeah, that's the pom-poms. And then I did paint them with 2 tones of red. You can see me painting them with the shoes. So back to the shoes. The shoes were basically just kind of a choice. I couldn't find exactly what I wanted for the price I was willing to pay. So that is why I did do the difference in the shoes, and I do think it turned out good. So I ended up just painting them just as close to as I could. Good. So I ended up getting them as close as I could to the movie description. So I ended up just painting all like the detail on that and then just sealing those guys up. So I ended up just going ahead and sewing the back of the dress up off camera because it was really hard to get on. So unfortunately her dress cannot come off, but it is just permanently sewed onto her. So she will forever and always be Pennywise. So now we're gonna switch over to talk about the larger doll, which I did off camera, the mock-up for the big skirt, but I don't think we're to that yet. So gonna cut that. We're gonna use as much fabric as we can on this. I am personally going to start with the bodice because I feel like that's easier to add the skirt on after that. So to do that, honestly, I reuse patterns a lot. So you'll see me using the Danny Chu Smart Doll hoodie pattern, modifying it for this dress. Is this the correct way to do it? No. Did I care to do it any different way? No. I also just couldn't find the shirt pattern. The shirt pattern would have worked a lot better, but I do like the bigger like hoodie patterns just because I do know I can always take it in if it is a bit too large. Okay, so I ended up just cutting that out in like the stripes going the same way as a smaller doll, but with this one, instead of the big poofy sleeves in red, I ended up doing them in a gray, which is just going to be the backside of some of that striped fabric. And I thought that actually was pretty smart, and it turned out really well. And then also going back and using that gray lace for the edges of all the ruffles. I didn't write it down, but I did working on the skirt now. Off camera, I did work on doing a hoop skirt, which is actually going to be in the next video if you want to know how I did that a bit more, because I have just a bunch more of those to make. So if you do want to learn more about how I did that, watch the next video coming out. Don't know when, but it'll be soon. But that's where I make the underskirt, which is going to be like the hoop skirt that you're seeing and is on her immediately. But for now, we're just going to focus on the base skirt and all the ruffles. Yeah, so if we look at the pattern again, or the concept art, it's going to be just this big ball ground with a bunch of ruffles on it. So I ended up having some red fabric that I did use as the base for this because I did know that there wasn't going to be enough gray fabric, which is fine because I also need to use up a bunch of this red fabric because what I need is only a small piece, which I am happy for. So again, just trying to use as much fabric as possible for these projects because I feel bad getting this large piece and only needing a small amount. So trying to just use everything in general is always what I try to do. Can I get some balloons flying around while I try to figure out where I am? Okay. I don't really know where I am. so we'll just wing it.
No. Wait.
So basically it's kind of just like a big rectangle with a smaller top, and I just attached that to the bottom of the skirt, or the bottom of the shirt. I did make the shirt a bit longer, so I did have that extra flap I made, so it hits about under the bust now, and originally when you first saw me cutting it, it was a lot longer, so it hit about crotch level. I did that so I can fluctuate where I wanted to put the skirt, so I did end up putting it a bit higher to make sure it did lay all the way down. I did that off camera because it was a new pattern and it was a bunch of work. I ended up closing it first because I couldn't figure out the best way to attach the ruffles, because if I did the ruffles before I closed up the back seam, it would have had this ugly line where it met, and I just thought it would look a lot cleaner if I just finished sewing everything and just added the ruffles on top. So that's what I did. And then you won't see me, but you did see me cut off the bottom of the dress to make it a bit more even. And then off camera, I did just go back and hem that up because that was a bit bothering me. Okay, sure. And now we're on to the final bit of painting, finally. So we're gonna start off with the Barbie balloon I found at the Goodwill as well. It's on a different trip, and I think it's gonna be a good addition to it. Now, what you're seeing is the aftermath of what I also did off camera, because it was pretty boring and it wasn't that interesting. I just took some Sculpey clay and just a thin layer to even out, because it had a big B and then the Barbie logo on it, but I wanted it flat, so I just took a thin layer of that and put it over it. And yeah, that's pretty much that. I put something in the toaster oven to like food or something that's cooking, and then while it cools down, once it beeps, I put that in, since it is such a thin piece, and that usually bakes it as well, or I put it on top of the toaster oven. But again, use what you know, do what you know, follow instructions. This is just what works for me, but I know some people are very worried that their pieces crack or the plastic will melt. You could also put it outside, like in your car, since it is, if it's summer. I've had Sculpey bake that way as well. It's just kind of a weird thing. I also have a fan off camera in these shots, so you'll see me walk off. Also, I did the first coat of red on this and then realized that this is gonna take forever, so I busted out some white and ended up becoming a pink base coat, but I ended up fixing that with red later on. You'll just have to wait and see that. So while we're waiting for the balloon to dry, we're gonna move on to the dress. So the dress has this middle section that the ruffles don't hit on, and even in the concept of it, I wanted to have this kind of look to it, like this is gonna be the eye-catching piece. So this is a really trust the process, because I really thought I ruined this as soon as I painted it, because it was just like, it was a mess, but we'll see. The bottom of it, the big poofy cloud bits, are gonna be the part when Pennywise is dancing in the movie, the more modern one, not like the 1990s one, when the girl of like the losers group goes down and finds this big trash pile with kids floating around it, and it's good. That's gonna be when he dances. That's where that idea comes from. And then above that are gonna be little black balloons. So in order to get the full, like, I think it's supposed to be Rings of Hell. I honestly am not sure. But the Rings of Hell look, it was just a yellow base on that, and I had to go over that a few times. I started with acrylic paint because that's what I was using for the balloon, but I ended up switching to a higher quality cosplay paint, which is supposed to be a flexible acrylics. So I believe they put some kind of latex in it as well, and latex usually stains clothes, so that's what I was hoping on, and being able to build that plastic layer up onto that. And then I went in with some red orange to kind of just add into the highlighting of hell on that. And then I ended up just doing a black outline to kind of go to that cartoon along with those black balloons. So back to the small doll, because you probably realized that crucial part of a doll is hair. This part stumped me literally until I was doing it. I had zero idea what to do on this. Generally, no clue. I still don't. I'm okay with it, but it was a process to get here. I ended up wanting to do a half up, half down look. So I started with parting the hair into like a half up, half down. Secure that with a clear ponytail. And then I was like, I wonder if I could do like a balloon look, because this has her hair look a bit flat. So I ended up pulling the rest of the hair back into just a ponytail, leaving out 2 front bits for like a bangs curly look. Again, referencing Pinterest and boards and everything like that. And I ended up getting some gel, hairstyling gel. It's just cheap stuff that I've had for years that I use on dolls or for fur creatures. It's just what I use. So I ended up coating, so I put the hair in the ponytail and then poofed it up a little bit, and then I started to work on the side pieces, and those I covered in gel, and then I took a straw and just curled it around. I didn't let it dry all the way because I'm time crunched here, but I think it turned out okay how it is. And then I ended up doing the same to the back of the ponytail because it was a bit too poofy and a bit too neat looking. So I wanted to try and do curls to resemble the twisted one on the balloon handle, so it looks like maybe just a bunch of balloon cords hanging up down. So I think that does look a bit nice. I think it looks okay. Hair is still a bit of a struggle for me. And that brings us to the wrap-up portion of this. Overall, I think it's an okay project. The main goal was sort of reached. I still have a bit of fabric left, but I do plan on making a hoodie for my smart dolls out of the leftover fabric, so all of the fabric will be used. And that was the main point of the goals of this video, so I think that point is achieved. However, I think what I did is okay. The sewing can definitely be improved on, especially on the socks. The stitches, I did it a bit too tight, so you can still see the stitches getting to there. And I'm not thrilled that the dress isn't removable. I mean, it's not required. Some people do sew their dolls into stuff. It's just something that I try to challenge myself to be able to take the dresses on and off. If you're interested, I have decided to try and list her. If you are interested in buying her or the smart doll dress, the smart doll itself is not for sale, nor is the crinoline that goes underneath, or the hoop skirt, but the dress itself is for sale if you want your smart doll like Halloween costume already made. But they'll be on Facebook Marketplace, links coming soon. I haven't listed anything yet, but they will be coming soon. I also have a Facebook page if you are just interested for whatever reason. I do more than just doll content, but hey, you know, and thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment if you have any tips and tricks on how to get better at sewing, or painting, because painting is a struggle, or even just motivation on how to clean my paintbrushes on time. They're still sitting in the sink. Procrastination. I hate washing the paintbrushes. That is the worst part of it. But thank you so much again for watching this video, and I hope you liked it, and thanks guys. Bye!